All right. What's up? What's up, everybody? We are live Friday, October 3rd. On October 3rd, he asked me what day it was. Only the real ones will know what I'm talking about. So if you guys have not noticed, my awesome co-host is not here today. Chandler is, I don't know what he's doing, spending some time with family, probably climbing a mountain or something like that. So normally what we do is we just go live and we talk about what's working in today's market. Now, I was just going to skip this, but I had a couple of really interesting one-on-ones with some of my advanced inner circle members. And I noticed a common theme between people that are doing really well right now and the people that aren't. And so I don't have a lot planned for today, but I'm just going to riff off of some of the things. Like if you're struggling in today's market, all the way from you just starting, from you being very experienced running a team, I'm going to tell you the differences that I see between people that are actually doing really well and people that aren't. Awesome. What's up? Jay Fitzy was just in the circle. Great stuff. Awesome, brother. Well, we're going to jump into it. So I'm going to screen and I'm going to just do a little bit of a presentation, and we're going to talk about one main concept, which is systems. Everybody talks about systems right now versus accountability, right? And what does that actually mean? And so accountability, let's see if I spelled that right. There we go. Something like that. And so you hear a lot of people, they're like, you got to have systems in place. You got to have systems. You got to have systems. So what is a system? And for me, it's pretty simple. Is a system is just the way that you do things. Oh, it's the way that you do things. And I'm going to add to that repeatably, right? The way that you do things repeatably, right? And so, for example, I might have a system of how I run my weekly meetings. That might be part of my systems, right? So I'm going to do a sales training. I'll give you guys a perfect example. For my business, we do a sales training every single day. Every single day, we'll hop on, we'll do a sales training, and I ask them three things. The number one thing I ask them is, what are you grateful for today? I want to get them in a positive mindset going into the training. The second thing I ask them is, what were your KPIs from yesterday? And so every single day, they need to hit 120 dials, 120 minutes of talk time, and they need to make 2 offers. That's part of my system, right? And the last thing that I ask them is, what is their most likely to close, right? You can call that a system. It's like how I go about it. The next thing that I do is I have a weekly call with my team every single day as well, right? And so, like, for example, if my team needs to get 40 leads, right? And I need to have, of those 40 leads, let's say I need to have 30 qualified leads. Let's just call them qualified leads. And then I need to get 4 contracts. And then my dispo team needs to sell 3 deals at $25K, right? Yeah, this is recorded, Manny. By the way, you can ask questions. So I'm just riffing. I'm talking about something that is really important. I've noticed this is a common theme, right? So that might be part of my systems, right? So let's talk about what is accountability, right? So accountability, let's just do this. It's what happens if you don't hit numbers. Okay. This is what actually makes money. It has nothing to do with your systems, okay? Everybody's talking about you need to have KPIs in place. You need to have like your drip campaigns. You should have speed to lead. Guess what, guys? You can have all of that stuff in place. You can talk about it. But if you don't have accountability with your team to make sure that the people that are supposed to hit their numbers are actually hitting them, then you're not going to get anywhere, right? Having the KPIs to track doesn't actually help you. saying that you're going to make 2 offers a day and not actually doing it doesn't actually do anything for you. So like, for example, let's go back to that, to the leads example, right? So this is like real life in my business, right? So 40, let's do 35 qualified, let's say 4 contracts. And there's obviously other metrics that we track in here, contracts, and then 3 closed. Okay. So in my business, this number right here, so the 45 to 45, 40 leads, 35 qualified, this goes to my CMO. And so that's my chief marketing officer. So this is weekly, by the way, every single week. So every single week we meet. Let me just make that to where you guys can actually see this now. So every single week we go, okay, did we get 40 leads, right? And luckily, I don't really need to hold my CMO. He's a fractional CMO. I don't really need to hold him accountable because he's ran some of the largest wholesaling businesses in the country. Irby Buys, when they were doing, $2 million a month. He's done marketing for like the biggest players that you can think of. He's ran marketing for, right? He was also a COO, so he knows how to hold himself accountable. But if I had to have that conversation with him, like I would have it. Luckily I don't need to. Now my number for my team is I need to turn these 35 leads into 4 contracts, right? That's the number that I have for my team. Is out of the 35 qualified leads, I need to turn them into a minimum of 4 contracts, right? So if I go look, and I'll even pull up my CRM for you guys, just to show you guys what it actually looks like inside of my business, right? So if we go, let's see if I can share my screen. And I was showing this to one of my advanced students the other day. We were talking about this. So if I go to my transactions, I go to all transactions, and I go to filter. First off, if I just look at like the last if I look at created date in the last 92 days, created date, you can see that this is, if you do the math, it's 4 a week. It's consistent, right? Let me do this. Created date, last 92 days. I had that up, but I'm going to show you guys some other numbers so you guys can see like, so there's a shitload of contracts here. I think there's 48, right? And so if I go and I look at created date this week, right? It's Friday today. And so I should have what? I should have 4 contracts. Now we got 5 contracts, right? If I go look at the last 14 days, right? So I should have at least 8 contracts. I have 10. If I look at the last 21 days, I should have at least 12 contracts, right? And let's see what I have. I have 13, right? If I go the last 28 days, I should have whatever, 16 contracts. We have 17, right? And so the reason I bring that up is I do not just bank on, okay, eventually we're going to make the numbers up, right? And you guys will see that. Like you can see, I practice what I preach. It's 4 contracts every single week, right? And so how am I able to do that? And why is it that some companies, they just look back at their numbers at the end of the quarter and they go, oh, well, I didn't hit my metrics. I didn't hit my KPIs. And this is for like, I don't even care if you're in wholesaling. If you set out a goal for you to be able to hit a specific metric, what do you do when you don't hit that number, right? That's what makes or breaks businesses right now. Manny, I actually did a video on Resimpli versus Left Main. I actually like Resimpli better. I switched to Left Main when they didn't have the systems and process, like the system, the tracking that they have in Resimpli. And then like 3 weeks after I switched, Resimpli added all the tracking stuff that I needed. So it was a bad decision, but I'm in a 3-year contract with Left Main, so we're going to ride it out. That being said, don't switch CRMs if it's not like causing you a huge headache inside of your business. It's a terrible thing to do with your time. And so let's talk about some things that we have for accountability, right? And this is where the money is made. So the first thing is I'm going to talk about just getting started, right? So if you're just getting started, you kind of have 2 options. You need to focus on leads inside of your business and then offers. And I'm talking about like you're brand new. So you just got into wholesaling. This says leads, not Chad, just so you guys know. There you go, leads. So you just got into wholesaling and you're like, how do I actually find success here? What do I need to do on a daily basis to find success here? Now, really simple formula for this. You need to make a minimum of 2 offers per day. That should be the first thing that you should do. Now, when I was getting started, what I used to do is I don't eat breakfast. So I would not make a single, not eat a single thing in the day until I made, now my business was a little bit different. I had to make 5 offers a day. And so I would not eat lunch until I made my 5 offers. And so what would happen is as I would get hungrier, I would be more motivated to actually hit my numbers. And I wouldn't do anything else. I would move all my meetings, all my other stuff towards the end of the day because I knew that I needed to be able to make my 2 offers a day, right? And if you do the math, 2 offers a day times just working 5 days a week, 20 working days is going to be 40 offers a month. All right. If you can get 40 offers per month, and let's say that you're dog shit at closing, like you're just really bad, you're just not that good, right? 40 offers times 0.1, which is a terrible close rate. So this is 10%. This is going to equal 4 contracts per month, right? If you can get 4 contracts and let's say you close 65%, let's say really conservatively, that's going to be 2 deals per month. And that's typically going to be at least 30K in revenue, right? And you should be able to do that. Like there's no reason why you can't get to 30K a month in revenue wholesaling. It's really simple. But the reason that people don't is they go, oh, well, I can't make 2 offers a day. I don't have the lead flow to make 2 offers a day. It's like, all right, bitch. Well, if you don't have the lead flow to make 2 offers a day, how do you go make 2 offers? Like figure it out. That's what your job is, right? Would you solve that problem to make 30K a month? Would you solve the problem of making 2 offers a day? It's really simple, right? So if you don't, can you pull like a pre-foreclosure list, right? Can we pull a list of pre-foreclosures? And can I start calling them and start making my 2 offers a day, right? That would be my first go-to. Maybe I just start cold calling and I do like a stacked niche list, right? If you guys don't know, there's a guy named, I think his name's Tyler Austin. And out of all my students that do cold calling, specifically for like newbies, he does something called FTM. It's first to market. It's a strategy where he teaches you basically how to filter down and not let any of your leads slip through the cracks. And you're getting to the leads first. I've seen a lot of success with people using his platform and that strategy, I should say, of like the first to market, cold calling them, texting them, direct mail. But these things cost like little to no money, right? And some of you guys might be like, dude, I can't even afford to pay a $200 list. All right, dude, go get a job and start making money. You can DoorDash and like cut your expenses until you can actually start to afford that, right? And it's like people stop at these walls. They're like, oh, well, I can't do that because of this. And they let that be the wall that actually stops them from being successful. And I'm going to talk about even high-level sales managers that are doing, 200-300K a month. I'm going to talk about how this applies to them as well. But people just hit these walls and they go, oh, well, for example, a newbie, oh, I don't have enough leads to make 2 offers a day. I'm not getting enough lead flow. It's like, all right, well, figure it out. How would you go get more lead flow? Have you been cold calling? Oh, I can't afford a list. It's like, all right, well, what do you need to do to afford a list? Because the average salary in the United States is what, $58,000? And so you can't go live off of $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month and save a little bit so you can start buying your list in a cold calling platform to make your dials. Like if you can't do that, yeah, dude, you're not going to be successful. So just quit. I don't know what you do if you quit. You quit, don't get a job, be broke. I don't know. Like I don't have an answer for you at that point. You're just like buying into the fact that you're a loser, right? And so there's a saying, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. And if you can't do this, if you can't make 2 offers a day, and I'm talking about being dog shit at closing, and you get 10 offers or basically 10% close rate, 4 contracts and 2 deals. Like that's all just mindset. It's really like that simple, right? But what starts to happen is now you're making 40 offers, right? You're going to make your 40 offers per month. And yes, my handwriting's bad. Let me see if I can make this pencil a little bit smaller. So you guys, okay, so we're making our 40 offers per month. And what we're going to start to find is we're going to start to find problems, right? And so let's say the first problem that we've identified is that we have a 10% close rate, which is terrible, right? So then I'm going to go, okay, well, how do I solve that problem, right? And let's start like you're broke, right? You can't afford sales training. It's like, well, can I commit to watching 30 minutes a day of sales training? And what happens if I don't do that, right? Now, this is super simple. Like if you go to the gym and you could just go like, listen to this while you're at the gym, that might be one thing that you do, right? It really helps if you're in a group that holds you accountable and that has a weekly call and has a bunch of training and you show up and you say, hey, I'm going to show up and role play something every single week. At the very least, can I spend 1 hour a day listening to my own sales calls? If you just listen to your own sales calls, you are going to get better at sales, because what you're going to realize is you're going to hear things that are like, oh, well, the seller didn't react well to that. I asked them this question and they reacted negatively to that. So on the next time that I try to ask a question like that, I'm going to change it. I might use some framing techniques. I might use something else, right? I'm going to ask a different question. I'm going to learn how to use better tonality, right? And if you combine these two, if you combine the, hey, I'm going to, do 30 minutes of sales training a day and 1 hour listening to sales calls, then you're really going to be better off. And maybe you move this to a 20% close rate. Now you're making 40 offers. You're going to get 8 contracts, right? 8 contracts. Let's say conservatively 5 of them close, and you're at 20K per deal. 20K times 5 is $100,000. Congratulations. You made it to 100K per month, right? And all it really takes, there's no systems here, guys. There's no like anything. It's like, what is my systems? My systems were really simple. I held myself accountable to make 2 offers per day. I held myself accountable to improve my skills to get to a 20% close rate. And then maybe I have to block off some extra time to be able to dispo these deals. All right. So I'm going to spend some time answering questions that are in the chat. What marketing strategy are you finding success in? Manny, that's a question like we could go. I could make an entire video about that. What works for me may not work for you. So like if you're in one specific market, direct mail might work better for you and PPC might not work. Like we're in a couple of different markets. We do a ton of PPC, right? So I mean, it just depends on your channel. I can tell you like PPC is making a pretty good comeback if you're in multiple markets, because you can get a pretty significant cost per lead. And if you watched our last couple of lives, we showed you how a lot of people are searching for like help with my mortgage, sell my house fast, things like this. Who would you say is good to watch for sales? Jeremy, anyone else? Podcasts? I just watched you, bro. Crazy value. I mean, honestly, bro, like if you're doing 30 minutes a day, yeah, you can watch my stuff because it's real estate specific. But I watch a lot of Matt Ryder. I really like Matt Ryder's videos. Actually, he's like the main guy that I watch for sales training is like Matt Ryder and Jeremy. You can watch those. You can pick up a good bit of stuff. But yeah, like that's all free on YouTube. You don't even need to pay for anything, right? And you can get better at sales. All right. So we talked about like how to get started, right? Now, this is one of the things that it's really driving me crazy when I see this. And it's just straight laziness. You will not be able to run a successful team unless you can do this. So this is a Jocko quote. I'm going to write it out. So when it comes to performance standards, I want you to write this out and I want you guys to put this somewhere. So when it comes to performance standards, it's not what you preach. It's not what you preach. It's what you tolerate. It's what you tolerate. And so we're going to talk about this for the rest of this call. And so I have this as a background, like this quote right here as a background in my computer. And I remember talking to one of my coaches, one of our coaches inside of the our advanced group. He has built a business to $2 million a month. He has a lot of experience training salespeople and running sales teams, right? And I have the fortunate blessing of being able to be coached by him. One, he coaches for my group, so I get to ask him questions too, right? And I remember at one point he asked me what my acquisitions manager's KPIs are, and I told him, I was like, yeah, they need to be making 2 offers a day. And he goes, all right, well, how many offers did you make last week? And I had 3 reps, and it was like 10 offers. And he's like, well, then those are not your KPIs. Your KPIs are 10 offers per week divided by 3 reps. Was that 3 per week? Right? That's what your actual KPIs are. And so if you can't hold your team accountable to hitting their numbers, it doesn't matter what you tell them. It's not about what you say your numbers are. If you tell yourself that you're going to make 40 offers per month and you only hit 20, it doesn't matter that you said you were going to do 40 offers. If anything, you just lied to yourself. And so you broke your own confidence, right? And what ends up happening is your team stops respecting you because you haven't shown them that you're the type of person to stick with your word. If you tell them that they need to make 120 dials every single day, 120 minutes of talk time and 2 offers, and then they show up on the meeting and they hit 100 and they hit 100 minutes of talk time and 1 offer, and you let that go, what you're telling them is that you don't actually have any sort of standards. And so I really was against this when I was in the military. I was a reconnaissance Marines, which is like special operations. I was a sniper, and that we always thought it was cool to we weren't up to the standards, right? So in the military, you have regulations. You have to have your hair cut a certain way. You can't have a beard. Your sleeves have to be rolled up a certain way. You have to blouse your boots a certain way. And I kind of bought into this mindset, like, oh, we're special ops. Like we have like super low sleeves. That's one of the things that you kind of do to like rebel against the Marine Corps. And we have longer hair. Sometimes we have beards, and we wear our boot blousings low. And I used to think like this was all cool. Like it was cool stuff that I didn't have to follow the rules until I realized why the military actually does that. The reason that the military upholds standards like that, they're so strict about everything. So even your ribbons, they're exactly 1/8 of an inch apart and they're centered on the chest. And yes, they made that rule up. Yes, that may not save lives, but somebody actually came on and they were talking about this. And the reason that they do that is because it's complete discipline and upholds to your standards, right? And so, like, for example, if all of your ribbons are 1/8 of an inch and they inspect that stuff, like literally, like when you're going through boot camp, they inspect that your ribbons are 1/8 of an inch. They get a freaking ruler out, right? They'll do the same thing with your hair. And they do all of that. And the reason that they do that is when they tell you to set up your machine gun at 273 degrees magnetic, that means 273 degrees magnetic. It doesn't mean 272. It doesn't mean 274. And this was something that I just heard from a general that was given a speech. And it really resonated with me because it's like how you do the little things is how you do the big things. And so when you let your team just slip by with, oh, yeah, I didn't hit KPI today. And you go, oh, it's okay, man. Better luck next time. Right. And then they don't hit it again. Right. It's like how they do that is how they're going to start doing other things. And so if, maybe it starts there and then it's like, all right, well, you need to go through an objection handling process when you talk to a seller and then they miss it. And you're like, well, make sure you do it on the next time. And then it's always make sure you do it on the next time. And before you know it, you have an entire team that's making 40 dials a day. They're making 1 offer every other day, and they're not objection handling any of their sellers. And it just got out completely out from under you. And it's because you don't have standards inside of your business, right? So you need to have performance standards and you need to uphold them. And your job this is another part that I had to learn is somebody asked a great question. Alex said, how do you set up your compensation for your acquisitions to keep them motivated? I don't keep them motivated based off of the commissions, Alex. So I'm going to go into that in a second. So my job as their leader is not to just bark orders, right? Now that works in the military, but it's a very specific type of person that signs up for the military and they know what they're getting into. You also go through an indoctrination process inside of your boot camp, right? So like they literally strip you down to where you believe you're nothing. They shave your head bald, right? They like yell at you and they basically brainwash you into following directions. And I'll give you guys an example. One of the things they do in boot camp is they'll take the little like brush that you clean the floor or anything that they have, and they throw it and they say grenade, and everybody has to run and go jump on it, right? They're doing that to condition you, right? It's all just brainwashing to condition you to be a good soldier, right? Or a good Marine. And so, like, obviously, I'm not brainwashing my acquisitions reps. I'm not like bringing them through an indoctrination process where I tell them that they're nothing and that they're scum, and then, you know, go through this like giant epiphany of like, now you're the man, right? I don't do that. And so you lead them slightly different than I would lead Marines. And I do that differently now. And so the way that I keep them motivated is by helping them, right? And so I'll give you an example. We do something that we call 100 calls to close. I got this from one of my coaches, 100 calls to close. And so we do this on day 5 of onboarding. And so on day 5 of onboarding, what we'll do is we'll say, hey, your task today is to be able to make 100 dials in the CRM before you log off. Now, I had a rep who called me at about 5 o'clock, and he was like, dude, I don't know how I'm going to make 100 calls to close. I'm at 50, right? He was at half his number, and it was 5 o'clock. And so what would a bad leader do? A bad leader would say, well, go ahead and figure it out. You know what I decided to do is I said, hey, I'm going to help. I'm going to jump inside of the CRM and I'm going to start making dials with you. And so I literally just had fun with it. One of my reps also jumped in as well. One of the more senior guys jumped in. We were at like 230 calls by the end of the day. And this guy finally hit his 100. But we sat there and we called with them until about 8:45 at night. And this guy finished up his 100 calls, right? And so you have to lead from the front. And here's the thing that it's really dangerous. And I've seen it twice. I've seen it twice inside of my group where I'm talking to you guys that are like sales managers or leaders inside of your business, or take a note of this if you want to be a sales manager, you want to be a leader inside of your business, is I've seen this where the owner of the company is not a great salesperson. Not a great salesperson, also not a great leader. Dangerous combination, right? At least I've seen at a different company, I'm not going to name who it is, their sales manager was the best salesperson. He was like by far the best in the company. And he was a terrible leader, but he was good at sales. And so although the way that he talked to people probably wasn't the best, and the way that he acted probably wasn't the best, people had a level of respect for him because they knew he could close deals. So if he said something, they would try it. They would do it. And what I've seen in the past is, and I tell you, I've seen this twice in the last 3 years, and I've trained, hundreds of companies at this point. And so I've seen this where the sales rep is better than the owner by far. Like they are the ones that bring in all the revenue. And the owner or the sales manager is also not a good leader. Right. And it doesn't mean you have to be both, but you have to have one or the other. Right. And ideally, you do have both. Right. And so what would happen is the sales rep would start to struggle with like hitting KPI. They would start to struggle with, maybe like some objections that they didn't know how to overcome. Maybe they'd have a bad month. And the sales manager would try to get involved. Right. And so they would maybe bring me on to help them train their sales team, or they would start trying to hold them up to KPIs. And because the rep didn't respect the sales manager, they would basically just tell them to fuck off or screw. I'm not supposed to curse on YouTube. I already did it, so I'm just going to be myself. Apparently, it's like kills engagement if I curse on YouTube. But whatever. I don't need this thing to go viral. So the sales rep would basically just tell them to fuck off. Now, it doesn't sound like fuck off. This is what it sounds like. Oh, I couldn't make the sales training because I was busy making calls. Oh, I didn't hit my KPI today because I had this other thing that I was going to do, but I'm going to make up for it. Right. And then they don't make up for it. And I didn't do this because of this. And then when you start cracking down on them, they start to put more pressure back on you saying, well, you're micromanaging me, or look at all the revenue that I throw on the board, or look at what I do for this company. And they start to talk like that. Right. That's what that actually sounds like. And I've seen a lot of sales managers, like people that have come through my program, just completely transform their sales team. And I've only seen two that struggled. And the two that struggled have this exact problem. They do not have respect from their sales reps because, one, they don't know how to hold them accountable. That's the first one. And then two, they're not even good themselves, right? And so they can't demonstrate to their team what good sounds like. And so I'm not on here like on a high horse saying like I'm the best sales manager in the world, right? Far from it. Like there's a lot that I can learn, and I learn every day from one of my coaches. I'm still practicing to be a better sales manager. I still strive to get better every single day. But here's what I do. All right. So every single day, I'm asking my team about their KPIs. Right. So we go gratitude. I've showed you guys that. And then I go KPI. If my team does not hit their KPIs, the first thing I'll ask them is why. Why did you not hit your KPI? Right. Now, most of the time, like my team knows the drill. If they didn't hit KPI, they're going to tell me exactly why. And then the next thing I'll ask them is how, which they also know the drill of how. So why didn't you? How are you? How are you? And this is like, how are you going to make it up? Why didn't you? Why didn't you hit your KPI? So why didn't you? How are you? And then the last thing that I'm going to do is tell them to let me know when they do. Right. And guess what I'm doing the very next day? And I'll give you guys a perfect example. Like my team, I love my team right now. They're super accountable people. And so I have a guy on my team, and on Monday he hit one offer. And I said, all right, why'd you hit one offer? He's like, man, I had another guy that I was chasing down and then just never answered the phone. I was like, all right, we can go into that if that was happening repeatable, but this guy always hits his offer. So I wasn't that worried. I was like, all right, cool. You're going to make it up tomorrow, right? And he said, yeah. Next day, he makes his two offers, but he didn't make his additional three. But before I could even get to this, he goes, but don't worry, I'm getting three today. Right. I said, all right, cool. Let me know when you get your three. Shoots me a message. Boom. Got my three offers out. Right. I think this guy locked up 3 contracts this week, if I'm not mistaken. You guys saw 5 contracts total. I think 3 of them were from him. Just put in the work. Right. So that's the first thing that I'll do. Right. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to ask him, what is your most likely to close? Now, you guys have seen like the inside of my business of how I do it. Now, there's one key metric of how to determine if you are a good sales manager or not. How much revenue can you generate, right? And so Steve Jobs has this really funny quote where he talks about, he's like, at one point when we grew with Apple, we were like, we really need senior management. We need like these senior guys that are going to come in and manage Apple. And he's like, that was a complete flop. And the reason it was a flop is because they knew how to manage, but they didn't know how to do anything. And it's the same thing for a sales manager. Like a lot of people, like they're like, oh, I'm doing something because I'm managing. But if you can't drive revenue, or if you're in the case of Steve Jobs, if you can't, create innovation, then you're not actually doing your job by being able to manage, by like holding all these meetings, right? I try to look at how can we do things with the least amount of meetings possible. And so when I'm going over most likely to close, I'm only doing that to drive revenue. I'm not doing that to just be like, oh, just tell me what it is. There's a reason for this question. And so what I'll do is the first thing I'll do is I might just role play with them of how they can use that scenario. Now, this is the first place that I start is like, all right, I'm going to role play with you. I'm going to figure out, what's the objection handle that you're struggling with, and we'll start working on that, right? Or I'll notice a trend. So like, for example, with my team, there was like 5 days in a row where they're most likely to close was someone that was ghosting them, right? And so I could go, hey, let's work on how to get people on the phone from ghosting you, which we did. We got one this week from a text message that we sent out from somebody that was ghosting, sent out a very creative text, got him back on the phone, locked up the contract, right? But instead, what I decided to do is I decided to just focus on the one call close. Because if I know if I can get them to one call close, they're going to have less people that ghost them. They're going to get all the way to the contract. And so we did that, and we've just been drilling the one call close all week, right? We've been drilling that sales process. And so now my job is to also do what? Hold them accountable to that. So I need to go listen to their calls to make sure that they're actually doing that. If I just give them the feedback and say, hey, go start shooting for one call closes, but they're not actually doing it, I'm not doing my job, right? Now it comes to the point of like, how do I actually help them, right? So the next thing that I'll do is something called whisper mode. And so we locked up 2 contracts this week from whisper mode. And so what they would do, and my team knows to do this now, is that they have somebody that they're struggling with. They will book a call during our sales training. And so we do our sales training every day at 9:45. They'll typically book the call at about 10 Central Time. And so they'll book it. We'll go through our KPIs. They know that we need to have time for that. And they'll say, hey, John, I got a call coming up. Can you coach me through it? And so we went on whisper mode, and they were really simple. One of them was a partner objection that we helped one of our reps overcome. He overcame it. We got the contract, right? The other one was a guy who has just been super flaky. So he's been like, oh, I'm going to sign it. I'm going to sign it. And then he never signs it. And so finally, I just taught my rep. I coached him through a little bit. Hey, here's how you're going to stress test him. I was on the phone to make sure he was saying the exact right things. And then boom, we get a contract, right? Now, how much respect and trust do you feel like my team's going to have for me when I help them make money? A lot, right? If I can help them make money, they're going to have a lot of respect for me because they're like, hey, this guy's actually helping me get the result. Now, if I just told them to go do something, I didn't hold them accountable to that. I was no accountability. There was no help. I didn't even tell them how to do it. I just said, hey, you need to go do this thing. And it doesn't work. What are they going to think about me? They're going to think, wow, this dude, why would I listen to this guy? He doesn't actually help me make any more money. And if you guys have ever had a boss where you make more money when they're not around, that's a great example of a bad sales manager, right? Or of a bad manager in general. It's like when you're around or when that person is around, your productivity drops instead of increases. When I was in the mortgage industry, she's actually one of my good friends now, but I had this, she was a sales manager, but like the way that I learned from her is she would just show me how she would do consults. And I would just sit there and I would stand and watch her do a consult and watch exactly all the things that she was doing. Then I would go off and do it. And sometimes like she'd be in my office as I was going through and doing a consult. I was relatively new in the loan space. So I didn't know everything I was talking about, but she was, she'd been in the industry for like 20 years. And so like I would have a question. I would just put the phone down and be like, hey, what should I say here? Should I say this? All right, cool. And I made a lot of money because of that sales manager. I made about 250 grand in my first year as a mortgage lender because I had that level of help and because I held myself accountable to doing the things that I was supposed to be doing, calling 40 agents every single week, following up with my clients, asking for referrals, all of that good stuff, right? Another great sales manager I learned from was the guy that ran that company, and I could talk about him a little bit more. How does Whisper Mode work? Yeah, it's in the CRM. You can do a Zoom call while they talk. Yeah, Manny, that would work. If you guys use smartphone, I could actually just show you. I might be able to share my screen. I'm sure I've got a rep on the phone right now. If I don't, well, I'll show you either way where you find it. So let me stop. Let me share my screen. Stop that screen share. I'll share my screen. I'll just show you guys what smartphone looks like. So if I go log in, hopefully this thing doesn't show my password or anything. You guys have access to all my leads. Let's see. Nope, no password. You guys can't see it. So if I go here and then I go to this call monitoring, this little eyeball, I can see right here. So I don't have anybody on the phone right now. That's a problem. But I can see right there. And I can go in and I can just hit the listen button. I can just listen in. So what I'll do is I'm also like just sitting there. If I'm not on a meeting and I see a contract go out, So I'll get a notification that a contract just went out. I'll just hop on whisper mode and I'll be like, hey, yo, I'm here with you. The seller can't hear, the acquisitions manager can hear. And so that's one of the things that I'll do to help, just get a deal across the finish line is I'll just be in their ear helping them do some objection handling, right? And the last thing that I'll do is I'll just do what we call manager calls. And so, for example, I didn't have to do it on this one, but that partner objection that I was telling you guys about this week actually, it was a real estate agent that was the partner that he wanted to go talk to. And so what I ended up doing is I was like, all right, well, go through this partner objection, try to get it locked up. And if the real estate agent wants to talk to you because they're giving you a bunch of objections, loop me in, and then they can just grill me with questions and I'll objection handle the realtor. And so like my team knows that I have their back like that. And because of that, there's a certain level of respect that they give me. And so they show up every single day. I have a rule of thumb. You show up at 9:44. And you guys have seen my videos. I've fired people because they've showed up late to meetings, right? But my team, I don't have to ask them anything. I know at 9:44, they're going to be on there. The meeting starts at 9:45. Really, most of the time we start at 9:44, right? And like for the rare chance that they're not on that call, I just look at smartphone, I go to call monitoring, and I can see that they're on a call. Happens very seldom, but sometimes it does happen. They're finishing up a call. And so I'll just run into the sales training right there. All right, cool. Let me just coach them through closing a deal, right? And so that's what you need to do. And I'll tell you, like, it all comes down to that accountability. And so I'm going to hit one more point of why your team's not doing something. There's typically 3 reasons. One, they are unwilling, right? This one is the only one that you really can't help. 2, they don't know how. That's supposed to be an apostrophe. They don't know how. And then 3, they don't know they're supposed to. All right. So let's say that we have, somebody asked this in the comments the other day. Let's say that we have a rep that's not hitting their KPI, right? So they're not even hitting their lead measures, like their dials and their talk time. First thing that I'm going to ask is like, what are your KPIs daily? If they don't know that, that's on me that I didn't tell them. You know what I mean? Like I got to tell them what their KPIs are, right? The second thing they might say is like, honestly, I don't know how people are not hitting their or I don't know how people are hitting their KPI. So I had a rep, she was a lead manager. She's great, by the way. But she just like really struggled to hit her dial KPI. And so everybody else would be hitting, roughly 120 dials, 130, 140, sometimes like 200 dials. And she was like consistently stuck at 70 to 80 for a while. So the first thing I asked her is, does she know what her KPI is? She's like, yeah. Second thing I asked her is, why is she not able to do it? She's like, I just honestly don't know how people are doing it. And I said, all right, cool. I can help you with that. And so what I did is I just hopped on a Google Meets call with her. I pulled up the CRM and I just started dialing leads. And I started showing her how quickly I was dialing leads. So, Manny, this was actually back when we were in Breeze Simply. And there's just like that little arrow button. So I'd pull up a list view. I'd say all the leads that came in the last 7 days. I would hit the dial button. They didn't answer. I'd hit the arrow. I'd go to the next, and I would just go boom, 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 boom. And I was like, all right. So we just did that for about 30 minutes. I was able to make about 25 dials. And so do you see how you can do it now? I was like, yeah. She's like, yeah, I absolutely do. I was like, what do you see the difference? Well, I was reading the notes. I was listening to the calls. I was doing all of these things. And that was what was slowing her down. She just didn't know how. Lo and behold, she hits her KPIs the next day, right? And she just needs to be shown how, right? And that's something that we can work with. The last thing is they are just unwilling. Now, it's very rare for somebody to just say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to hit their KPI. Normally, what unwilling sounds like is, oh, yeah, I'm going to get to it, and then they don't, right? They say they're going to get to it, and then they don't. Or they come up with an excuse, right? And so, like, there was somebody inside of it was actually right when he was joining. So somebody that's inside of my advanced inner circle. And he was telling me about some problems he was having with an acquisitions. And then the acquisition calls him while we're on the phone, just random timing. he's like, dude, I got all this stuff going on with this lawsuit. Like, I'm going to get to my dials eventually, but I got to take care of this stuff. And I just, like, as soon as he hung up, I was like, you got to let go of that guy. He's fucking toxic. As a toxic person that you have working with you, that he's going focus on something else, coming up with all these excuses as to why he can't hit his numbers. That is only going to cause problems inside of your business. Let him go. And this guy is crushing right now, right? He got some new reps that are actually far outperforming the old reps because they're hitting KPI. He's holding them accountable to showing up to the training. And so the last part that I'll hit on here is actually getting your team to train, right? And so, like, of all the people that I train, there's a very easy correlation I can see to who's going to improve. And so when I see a sales manager, so I'll give a shout out to this guy. His name's Jack. And shoot, I'll say his full name. Jack Stam. He's partners with a guy named Devin Carroll, and they have a phenomenal sales team. Also, one of the best sales managers that I've seen in a while, because what happens is, I'll give you a perfect example. We're going into the slow season, basically the last quarter of the year. And I had a conversation with them, and I was like, guys, you guys need to throw up a bunch of contracts on the board in September. This needs to be your best month. So figure out how to do that. And then I walked them through a couple of things to help drive revenue, right? Now, Jack is a sales manager. He's got reps under him that close deals. And Jack said, I didn't even have to get on and do TO calls or whisper mode or anything like that. Just the level of accountability, making sure my team's hitting KPI. That was a huge thing already. Now, another thing that he does is he will go find a call from each one of his reps and submit it to our weekly call reviews that we do in our advanced inner circle. So in our advanced inner circle, we do call reviews every single week. And what the good sales managers will do is they're not just waiting for their reps to go bring calls. They're going to hold them accountable and make sure that they do hold a call. If they don't, they're going to go find one. They're going to say, I think this is what they need to work on. And that's what Jack did. Jack has one of his reps closing at like 40%. Another rep was closing at like 28%. Like, these guys are savages. And it's because he makes them show up to the training. He doesn't take any bullshit from them. And I'll tell you, like, the only people that I have not seen be successful is these sales managers that come in. They're not good at sales themselves. They're like, I'm more of like a systems guy and this. And they're like, I just want you to train my team. It's like, okay, look, I've trained teams before. And as long as the teams actually show up and they want to learn, which I do have reps that they just respect the business owner enough to where they're going to show up and invest their time into the training that the owner invested money into and the owner's investing marketing into, right? So it's a respect thing for their reps to actually show up and put in the work. And the only reason that they wouldn't do that is, one, they have no respect for you, or two, they have a huge ego and they think they can't get any better. Which a lot of times those are the reps that are absolute fucking dog shit, is they have this huge ego. They think they're the best thing since sliced bread. And the only thing they're fucking doing is asking what about the condition, the time frame, the motivation, and the asking price. And they think that that's actually that's the reason why they're so successful, right? Because they can ask 4 basic fucking questions and they think that they're hot shit because of that, right? And so what ends up happening is they don't even show up to the sales training. They don't try to get any better. They're basically giving a middle finger to the owner. And then when it doesn't work for them, like, oh, well, the process just doesn't work, or I don't really vibe with this style, right? Because they haven't even given it a shot, right? And so I've seen this. I've been able to train enough people to recognize patterns. And it's not about the systems. It's about the accountability. It's about how you hold your team accountable every single day, right? What do you do on a daily basis? What are the consequences of not hitting your KPI? What do you do when your team is hitting KPI, but you're not getting contracts, right? And so, like, if my team's hitting their dials and hitting their talk time and they're not getting contracts, that's my job to help them implement the process. And so I might say, hey, work on your problem impact. Let's listen to a call tomorrow where you've worked on problem impact. Boom. They got 1% better. If I do that consistently enough, I have enough confidence in myself and my process that eventually they are going to start making me money. But I have to help them and I have to hold them accountable, right? And I need to do these accountability calls every single day, every single week. And that's what's crushing it right now. For people right now, if you're watching this in 2025, going into this quarter, you got to look at yourself in the mirror. And you got to ask yourself, am I holding myself accountable? If you can't hold yourself accountable, you damn well can't hold your team accountable, right? If you can't get up early, you can't do the little basic things right. Like you can't, get up, go to the gym. Maybe you don't go to the gym, but if you can't get up and you can't, hit your own KPIs, if you can't make your dials inside of your CRM, how are you going to expect your team to be able to do that? And so it starts with you, right? And this is why the bigger your organization becomes, the more you need to uphold standards, because it starts to trickle down. You need to hold your leaders accountable to being able to hold the reps accountable, right? And if you're a sloppy leader, you're never going to be able to grow a company, right? And I'm talking from a guy like I don't have the biggest, I don't have an Apple company, right? But I have a company that has leadership that holds other people accountable, right? I have people inside of my company that are responsible for holding other people accountable. And the only way that you can actually do that is if you have accountability yourself. And so, very simple takeaway from today. Number one, hold yourself accountable. If you're just starting, make 40 offers. I give you guys some tactics of how, but figure out how you're actually going to do that. Number two, when you start hiring, it's not about the performance standards that you preach. It's about what you actually tolerate. And if you can do those things right, you will be successful in today's market, in any market, and really in anything you do. And if you can't do those things right, there's no program that's going to help you. There's no course. There's no sales training. There's no nothing. Nobody's going to come save you because you're the bottleneck in your own life and in your own business. So hopefully this was helpful. You guys can see that if Chandler's not here, I get a little bit more intense, right? But I'm very passionate about this. And this is something that we preach every single day inside of our advanced inner circle that we talk about because we care about results. We're not going to put up with your bullshit. We're not going to put up with any excuses. If you want excuses, you might need to go somewhere else. But if you want accountability, come to us and we'll help you be accountable. So hopefully this live was helpful, guys. Appreciate some of you guys in the comments. And I'll see you guys all next week. Hopefully Chandler's on. I'll have to hold him accountable. Later, guys.